We continue now at the top of Daf Yomi Gemara of Meseches Avoda Zara. This is Avoda Zara Daf 5a. On the previous summit, the Gemara brought a statement from Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai that really David HaMelech, when it came to the sin with Bathsheba, and also when it came to Klal Yisrael by the sin of the Egel, really they were on a very high level. There should not have been such a sin. And what's the reason why it happened that there were these sins? It's lomar loch. It's to say to you, Shimchata Yochid, that let's say an individual does commit a sin. Omrim lo klach etzel Yochid. We tell the person, go look, there was an individual who did such a sin. It's possible to do teshuvah. V'im chatu tzibur, and the same thing. Let's say the community sins. Omrim, so we say again, Omrim lahu, we say to them, klach etzel tzibur, go by the tzibur. And Rashi explains, Lomar lach gezeiras hamelech hoisa. This was a gezeira from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, liton pischon pelashavim. This was something that we could therefore respond to those who are supposed to be doing teshuvah, to encourage them to do teshuvah. And the Gemara continues with tzricha. It's necessary to teach by both a yochid and a tzibur. Diyashmin on yochid, because if we just had a yochid, mishum de lo mefarsam chatoy, because it's not so widespread, it's not so well known his sin. Avol tzibur de mefarsam chatoayu emalo, but when it comes to the tzibur, that it's well known the sin, one might say not. V'yashmin on tzibur, and if we just had the tzibur, mishum de nefishi rachmayu, because again there's a lot of davening from the tzibur as a whole. Avol yochid de lo, but when it comes to the yochid where that's not true, de lo alima zechusei, he doesn't have such a strong merit, emalo, so I might say it's not the case. So tzricha, that's why it's necessary to teach by both of them, again, that there's this possibility of doing teshuvah. And Rashi explains, the mefarsim chatoy, and again, when it's a tzibur, so it's well known, it's widespread what the sin was, v'ik achilo, so there's a desecration. So again, imod lo liskablu, so one might say that the teshuvah will not be accepted. That's why we're trying to teach, again, both by the yachid and by the tzibur, the teshuvah is going to be accepted. And the Gemara continues, V'hainu de Rabbi Shmuel bar Nachmani Am Rabbi Yonason, and that's the same as the following teaching of Rabbi Shmuel bar Nachmani from Rabbi Yonason. Ma'idich siv, what does it mean when it's written in the pasuk in Sefer Shmuel? Ne'um David ben Yishai, says David ben Yishai, and Ne'um Hageber hukam ol, says the person who is raised on high. And what it means is as follows, Ne'um David ben Yishai, says David ben Yishai, Shehekim ola shel teshuvah, he raised up the yoke of teshuvah by his example, he showed the possibility of teshuvah. And the Gemara continues, Rabbi Shmuel bar Nachmani, Rabbi Yonason, and Rabbi Shmuel bar Nachmani says that Rabbi Yonason says, Kol ha'osa mitzvah achas ba'olam hazeh, anyone who does one mitzvah in this world, mekadmaso v'olechas lefonav, it walks in front of him la'olam haba, in olam haba. Shenemar, as it says in the pasuk, v'alach lefonecho tzidkecho chvod Hashem yasfecho, it says that tzidkecho, your righteousness, is going to go before you. V'chol over aveira achas malafafaso malichaso liyom adin, and anyone who commits an aveira, it wraps itself around the person, it brings him to the day of judgment. Shenemar, as it says in the pasuk, there's a pasuk in Sefer Iyov, Yilafsu orchos darcham, the paths of their way wind, and the pasuk goes on to say that they perish. And the Gemara continues, Rabbi Lazar Omer, Rabbi Lazar says, Kishura bo kekelev, the person's aveira, it's tied to him like a dog. Shenemar, as it says in the pasuk, this is the pasuk in Sefer Bereshis, it's the pasuk by Yosef and Potiphar's wife, it says, V'lo shama ileh lishkav etzlo lios imo, it says that he didn't listen to her to be with her, and the idea is lishkav etzla ba'olam hazeh, to lay with her in this world, lios ima ba'olam haba, to be with her in the world to come, meaning the aveira would have followed him there. And the Gemara continues, Amar Reish Lakish says, Bo v'nachzik tov alav, Oseinu come, and we should be grateful to our forefathers, She'el molei hein lo chatu, because if not for the fact that they did not sin, anu lo banu lo olam, we would not have come into the world. What Reish Lakish is saying is that the fact that they sinned, that's what allowed them to procreate and have children. Had they been perfect, had they not sinned, had they been godlike, then they would not have had children, and then we would not have been created. Shenemar, as it says in the pasuk in Sefer Tehillim, Ani amarti Elokim atem uvnei Elyon Kulchem, it says that you were godlike, and chavalta Masechet, but when you corrupted your deeds, when you committed the aveira, so achein ka'adam tamusud, so then you'd be like regular people, you would die. And the idea is, again, it was only after the corruption, only after the aveira, that they were able to have children. The Gemara says, Lamemer, does that mean to say de'ilo chatu, that if they had not sinned, lo have moldu, they wouldn't have children? V'aksib, but isn't it written in the pasuk, v'atem pru urevu, it says you have to be fruitful and multiply and Sefer Bereshis. The Gemara says, ad Sinai, that's only until Sinai, but at Har Sinai already, they would have been at that level where they would not have had children. But the Gemara says, what do you mean? B'Sinai namikse, by Har Sinai also it's written, lechem or lahem shuvo lachem li alechem, it says go back to your tents. Isn't the implication that they're going back to their tents to have relations, to have children? And the Gemara Gemara says, no, it's l'simcha sona, it's just for the celebration of that act, meaning to say it's for the companionship, but it would not have been to have children. But the Gemara continues, v'aksib, but isn't it written in the pasuk, l'man yitav lahem v'livneim? It says by Har Sinai it's going to be good for them and their children. And the Gemara says to that, la'osan homdim al Har Sinai, there were children that were standing there at Har Sinai, but there would not have been further children. But the Gemara continues, v'amar Reish Lakish, but didn't Reish Lakish say, ma'idech siv, what does it mean when it's written in the pasuk, zez sefer toldos Adam, it says this is the book of the generations of Adam. V'chi sefer haya lo la'adam harishon, was there a sefer for Adam harishon? Melamed sheher lo HaKadosh Baruch Hu la'adam harishon, what really this pasuk is teaching is that HaKadosh Baruch Hu showed Adam harishon dor v'dorshav, dor v'chachamav, dor uparnasav, he showed every generation with those who darshan, with the wise people of the generation, with the supporters of the generation. And Kevon Shigel Adora Shal Rabbi Akiva, when he reached the generation of Rabbi Akiva, Samach b'Torah, so he was happy with his Torah, V'nisatze b'misasa, but he was saddened by his death. Amar, he said, V'li ma yakru re'echa kel, how weighty are your thoughts to me, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And the Gemara continues along the same lines. V'yamar Rabbi Yossi, and Rabbi Yossi says, Ein ben David ba'ad sheyichlu neshamos shebeguf, the descendant of David, the Mashiach, will not come until all of the souls in the body are complete, until all souls are born. Shenemar, it says in the pasuk in Yeshayahu, Ki lo liolam oriv v'lo lenetzach exof, I won't contend, I won't be angry forever, Ki ruach melafon hayatov, because the spirit from before me will wrap itself, uneshamos ani asisi, and I'm going to create these souls. And so again, in any case, you see that the intention was that children would be born all the way up to the times of Mashiach. And so the Gemara continues and revises what it said above. Lo tema, don't say anu lo banu liolam, that if they had not sinned, we wouldn't come into the world at all. Ela kamisha lo banu liolam. What it actually means is, it's as if we did not come into the world. And Rashi explains, what does it mean? Kamisha lo banu liolam lafisha hein chayim liolam. The idea is that they would never have died, those who were at Har Sinai. The cholzman shein kayamin, and as long as they're alive, ein anu chashuv and klum, then we're considered like nothing. But the Gemara continues, L'meimra, does that mean to say, De'ilo chatu, that had they not sinned at the Egel, or have a maisi, that they wouldn't have died? V'aksib parshas Yevamos, but there's a parsha of Yevamos in the Torah, that implies there's death. U'parshas Nachalos, there's a parsha of inheritance in the Torah, that implies there's death. And the Gemara says, Al Tanai, well, that was all on condition. In other words, if there would be a sin, and if they would die, so these parshios would then be in effect. But the Gemara continues, U'miksivi kroi al Tanai, but our psukim written on condition. And the Gemara says, yes, Tahachi Amr Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish, because this is what Reish Lakish says. Ma'idech siv, what does it mean when it's written in the pasuk, Vayerev vayivoker Yom Hashishi, it says Yom Hashishi, Malamed shehista HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and Ma'aseh Bereishis, this teaches that HaKadosh Baruch Hu made a condition. We mentioned this earlier with Ma'aseh Bereishis, with the creation. V'yamar, he said, in Mekablan Yisrael as HaTorah, Hashishi refers to Vav Sivan. If Klal Yisrael accept the Torah, mutav, then good. V'imlav, and if not, achzer eschem l'tov vavo, then I'm going to return everything to nothingness, to tov vavo. And the Gemara continues, Meisvei, we have a question on Reish Lakish from the following brayso. So again, Reish Lakish said that had they not sinned at the Egel Hazav, so then they would have been immortal. And the brayso says that the pasuk says, Mi'iten v'haya levavam zeh lohem, if they had this heart, meaning to say if they had not sinned, if they would have been at this high level forever, levatal mehem malach hamavis yafshar, to say that there's no malach hamavis, to say there's no death, that's impossible. Shekvar nigzer gezerah, because that was already decreed. Halo kiblu Yisrael es HaTorah, rather Klal Yisrael only accepted the Torah, so that no nation would be able to rule over them. That's what would have happened had they not sinned. Shenemar, as it says in the pasuk, it says it's going to be good for them and their children forever. And so you see from this brisa that death would not have gone away. They just wouldn't have been ruled over by other nations. And so the Gemara continues and says, Hu diyamar ki aitana detanya. Reish Lakish actually follows the Tana in the following brisa. Rabbi Yossi says, Lo kiblu Yisrael es HaTorah, Klal Yisrael accepted the Torah, in order that the Malach Hamavis would not rule over them, in order to avoid death. Shenemar, as it says in the pasuk, Ani amarti Elokim atem uvnei elyon kulchem. Again, you're at this high level, godlike. Chevaltem Masechet, but then when you corrupted your ways, achein ka'adam tamuson, so then you will die like man. And so again, that's the idea of Reish Lakish, that death only occurred because of the sin by the Chet HaEgel. But the Gemara continues, Rabbi Yossi Nami, but Rabbi Yossi also, Haksiv, isn't it written in the Pasuk, the same Pasuk we just quoted in the Brayos above, Laman Yitav Lahem V'Livneim Ad Olam, it'd be good for them and their children forever. And the Gemara says, doesn't that imply, Tovahu Dahava, that it's good for them, Hamisa Ika, but there's still going to be death, you're not going to get out of that. So still, how does Rabbi Yossi interpret that Pasuk? And the Gemara says, Amar Lach, he'll say to you, Kevon Deleka Misa, if there's no death, Ein Lach Tova Gedola Mizu, there's no greater Tova than that. And so that's actually what the Pasuk means. The Pasuk actually means that they would avoid death if they avoided the sin of the Chet HaEgel. And the Gemara continues, V'Tanakama Nami, but the Tanakama also, he has to account for the Pasuk of Rabbi Yossi. Haksiva Chein Ka'adam Tamusin, doesn't it say in the Pasuk that you will die like man? And the Gemara says there's another way to interpret that Pasuk. My Misa, what does it mean that there's going to be death? Anios, it just means there's going to be poverty. Diyamar Mar, because the Master said, Arba Chashuvim Kamesim, there are 4 people that are considered like they're dead. Elohen, and they are as follows: the Ani, the poor person; Suma, the blind person; Umitzora, the leper; Umisha Ein Lo Banim, and someone who does not have children. And the Gemara brings sources for this. Ani, the poor person, the Chsiv, as it's written, Ki Mesu Kol Ha'anoshim, because they've all died. Now who is that referring to? Uman Inu Dasan Va'aviram. The men that are being referred to in the Pasuk are Dasan and Aviram. Umi Mesu, but did they really die? Mahava Have, they did not die, they were there. Elashiyardu Min Echseim, it just means to say that they descended from their property, they became poor, and that's considered like death. And Suma, it says a blind person also is considered like he's dead, because it's written, and this is a Pasuk. In Eicho, it says, B'machashakim hoshiveni k'meisei olam, and so you see, in the darkness, it's k'meisei olam, it's like death. And Mitzorah, and also by Mitzorah, it's written by Miriam, al nasi kameis, she shouldn't be like someone who's dead, and that was talking about having tzaras. Umisha ein lo bonim, and also somebody who doesn't have children, Dechsiv, as it's written in the Pasuk, this is by Rachel, Havali bonim, give me children, v'yamayin, and if not, Mesa nochi, I am dead, it's like I am dead. And the Gemara continues, Tanu Rabbanon, the rabbis taught, Im b'chukosai teilechu, if you follow my laws, Ein im elo lashon tachanunim, says the Brayos, the word im is a language of tachanunim, which means HaKadosh Baruch Hu is hoping, so to speak, that we follow in his laws. V'cheinu omer, and likewise it says in Sefer Tehillim, Lu ami shomei ali, again that language of Lu ami, my nation they should listen to me, they should follow, Kimat oivei machnia, that's the continuation of the Pasuk. V'yomer, and similarly it says in the Pasuk in Yeshayahu, Lu hikshavta lemitzvosai v'hi kenar shlomecha, again the idea is that you should listen to my mitzvahs. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is hoping that you're going to listen to the mitzvahs. The Pasuk continues, Vayhi kachol zarecha b'tzatzei me'echa v'gomer. And the Gemara continues, Tanu Rabbanan, the rabbis taught, Mi'itein v'haya levavam zelohem. Again, it says if their heart would be like this always, if they'd always be at this high level. Amar lehen Moshe Yisrael, Moshe says to Klal Yisrael, Kefuye tova, your people who you don't have gratitude for the good things, B'nei kefuye tova, and your children, your descendants of those also, again, they lack gratitude for the good. B'shosh Amar HaKadosh Baruch Hu Yisrael, because at the time that HaKadosh Baruch Hu said to Klal Yisrael, Mi'itein v'haya levavam zelohem, that it should be that their heart should be like this always. Hayo lahem lomar tain, they should have said tainata, they should have said give us that, we want that. And kefuye tova, these are kefuye tova, they do not appreciate the good. Dechsiv, like it's written in the Pasuk v'nafshenu katza, that Pasuk is talking about the fact that they did not appreciate the mon. And we will continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Hey Amud Beis.